Sure as humans walked away, and the Galactic Council knew they were doomed. Part 1. The council chamber was quiet for the first time in decades. Daniel Price stood at the human delegation table with his hands resting on the smooth surface. He had been Earth's ambassador for 12 years, and everyone in the room knew his face. The aliens sitting in their elevated seats looked down at him with confusion in their eyes. Some looked worried and others looked annoyed. Daniel did not care anymore. He picked up his tablet and held it for a moment before setting it down again. The sound echoed in the massive chamber. Every species in the galaxy had a representative here. The Cleavery with their 3 eyes and scaled skin. The Aquelians with their flowing bodies that shimmered like water. The Vrelnians who towered over everyone else. The Paranthi who moved on 6 legs. They were all here and they were all staring at him. Daniel took a breath and spoke in a clear voice. "We are leaving." The words hung in the air like smoke. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. He continued before they could interrupt. "Humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council effective immediately. All human personnel will evacuate Council space within 6 months. All treaties will be honored until their expiration. All debts will be settled. We will fulfill every contract we signed. But after that we are gone." High Chancellor Vextor stood up from his seat. His scales rattled as he moved. "You cannot do this, Ambassador Price. The Council structure depends on every member species. There are regulations and procedures." Daniel looked at him with tired eyes. "We followed every regulation, Chancellor. We submitted our withdrawal notice through proper channels. Everything is legal. Everything is final. We are done." Commander Lisa Hayes stepped forward from where she had been standing behind Daniel. She wore her military uniform with rows of medals across her chest. Each medal told a story of a battle won or a life saved. The Aquelian Collective had given her their highest honor after she saved their homeworld. The Vrelnians had made her an honorary member of their warrior caste. The Cleavari had written songs about her tactics at the Battle of Karos Rim. None of that mattered now. She looked around the chamber at all the faces watching them. Some of you are wondering why. Some of you think this is a negotiation tactic. It is not. Let me explain what humanity has done for this council. Her voice was steady and cold. In the past 10 years, human soldiers have fought in 63 separate conflicts. We have died defending worlds that are not our own. We have bled for people who barely remember our names. Lisa pulled up a hologram from her wrist device. Numbers and charts filled the air above the council floor. Humanity makes up 4% of the total council population. We provide 62% of all military forces. We have suffered 80% of all combat deaths in the last 20 years. When the Zorgothi attacked the Outer Rim colonies, it was human ships that responded. When the Kreveshi Empire threatened the trade routes, it was human pilots who flew patrol. When pirates raided medical stations, it was human marines who cleared them out. She paused and looked directly at Chancellor Vextor. And when we asked for help defending our own colony on New Montana, the council called it an internal matter. 8,000 humans died in that attack. Women and children, farmers and teachers. They died because nobody came to help them. Nobody except other humans. An alien delegate from the Thessian Union stood up. Her voice was shaking. "But you were compensated for your military service. You received payment and territory grants." Kevin Brooks laughed from his position at the economic station. He was young for a diplomatic attaché, but he knew numbers better than anyone. "Compensated? Let me show you compensation." He activated another display. This one showed financial records stretching back decades. Human corporations employ 43 million galactic citizens. Our technology patents are licensed by every major manufacturer in council space. Our medical research has increased average lifespan across all species by 30%. Our engineers designed the hyperspace lanes that connect every world in this chamber. He gestured around the room. "This building you are sitting in? Humans designed the shields that protect it. Humans built the life support systems. Humans installed the communication arrays." Kevin's voice grew harder. "And what did we get in return? We were denied a seat on the security directorate 17 times. Our expansion was limited to 3 star systems while other species were granted dozens. Our trade applications were rejected. Our colony proposals were voted down. Every time we asked for equal treatment, we were told to be patient. Every time we demanded respect, we were called arrogant." Dr. Amy Sullivan stepped forward next. She looked exhausted. Her medical coat had stains from a surgery that had lasted 30 hours. She had just saved the life of a Vrelnian council member's son. The family had thanked her with tears in their eyes. She did not feel proud. She felt empty. I have trained 2,000 doctors from 70 different species. I have shared every technique and every procedure that human medicine has developed. Last month, my colleague Richard Barnes was killed protecting Clevery refugees from raiders. He died holding a medical scanner in one hand and a pistol in the other. He was trying to save a child when they shot him. The council's official report called him a regrettable casualty. Amy's voice cracked. Richard had 3 daughters. They are 10, 8, and 5 years old. I had to tell them their father was a regrettable casualty. She pulled off her council medical service badge. The silver emblem caught the light as she placed it on the table. I am done watching good people die for a council that does not value them. She stepped back and said nothing else. Admiral Carl Jensen had been standing silently near the back of the human delegation. He was older than the others, with gray hair and deep lines around his eyes. He had fought in more battles than anyone else in the chamber. Enemy fleets turned away when they learned he was in command. His strategies were studied in military academies across the galaxy. He was a legend. He walked forward slowly. Every eye followed him. You want to know the real reason we are leaving? It is simple. You need us more than we need you. The council delegates erupted in protest. Voices overlapped in dozens of languages. Carl waited for them to quiet down. When they finally stopped, he continued. At Beller Station, Captain Nicole Green held the line with 1 destroyer against an entire enemy battle group. She was 29 years old. She had been married for 3 years. She bought time for 3 million civilians to evacuate. When she ran out of ammunition, she rammed her ship into the enemy flagship. She died instantly. Carl's jaw tightened. The council gave her a medal. Her daughter was 7 years old at the funeral. That little girl asked me why her mother died saving aliens who would not save us. I could not answer her. I still cannot answer her. So I am leaving, and every human ship is leaving with me. The chamber fell completely silent. Humans walked away, and the Galactic Council knew they were doomed. Part 2. The silence in the council chamber lasted only a moment before chaos erupted. Delegates jumped from their seats shouting in their native languages. Translators struggled to keep up with the overlapping voices. High Chancellor Vextor slammed his hand on his desk trying to restore order. The sound echoed, but nobody paid attention. Daniel Price watched it all with calm eyes. He had expected this reaction. He had prepared for it. Diplomat Shireen of the Aquelian Collective pushed through the crowd toward the human delegation. Her body rippled with emotion as she moved. Please, Daniel, you must reconsider. Think of all we have built together. Think of the partnerships and friendships between our peoples. Daniel looked at her and felt something like regret. He had known Shireen for years. She had always been kind to him. She had always treated humans with respect. But she was one voice among thousands. He spoke quietly so only she could hear. Shireen, I have thought about this for 3 years. I have reviewed every vote and every decision the Council has made regarding humanity. I have counted every time we were denied basic rights. I have attended every funeral for human soldiers who died protecting Council worlds. This is not a sudden choice. This is the result of decades of being treated as tools instead of partners. She reached out as if to touch his arm but stopped herself. What can we do to change your mind? What do you want? Daniel shook his head. It is too late for that. We do not want anything from you anymore. We just want to leave. Shireen's body dimmed with sadness. Where will you go? What will you do? Daniel smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We will build our own civilization far from here. We will find empty space and fill it with human dreams instead of council regulations. We will be free. Across the chamber, Trade Minister Gregory Wells was surrounded by Paranthi economic advisors. They were speaking rapidly, trying to calculate the financial impact of humanity's withdrawal. The numbers kept getting worse. One of them grabbed Gregory's sleeve with a trembling claw. You cannot pull out your investments now. The markets will collapse. Entire sectors depend on human capital. Gregory pulled his arm free gently. Then you should have thought about that before voting against our trade expansion proposals 8 times in a row. Another Paranthi spoke up with panic in his voice. But the contracts. Illegal obligations. Gregory pulled out his tablet and displayed a document. Every contract we signed has a withdrawal clause. We wrote them carefully because we knew this day might come. We will honor every agreement until its natural expiration. After that, you are on your own. He closed the tablet. You wanted to limit human economic influence in Council? Space. Congratulations, you are about to get your wish. In the military section of the chamber, several species representatives were arguing with Commander Lisa Hayes. A Vrelnian general towered over her, but she did not step back. You are abandoning us in a time of growing threats. The Kreveshi Empire is building up forces on the border. The pirate clans are getting bolder. Without human military support, the entire frontier will fall. Lisa crossed her arms. Then defend it yourselves. You have ships and soldiers. You have weapons and training. Use them, but your tactics, your strategies, your experience. The Vrelnian was practically begging. We need time to prepare. At least leave military advisors behind to help us transition. Lisa's expression hardened. We offered to share our military knowledge 20 years ago. The Council rejected it. You said you did not want to become dependent on human military doctrine. You said each species should maintain their own traditions. Well, now you can. A Cleavery admiral joined the conversation. His scales were dark with stress. Commander Hayes, please be reasonable. Lives are at stake. Millions of civilians will die if the frontier collapses. Lisa felt anger rise in her chest but kept her voice level. You are right. Lives are at stake. Just like lives were at stake at New Montana. Just like lives were at stake at Beller Station. Just like lives were at stake in 63 other conflicts where humans died, and you did nothing to help us. She leaned forward slightly. Now you know how it feels. Dr. Amy Sullivan had left the main chamber and was walking through the medical wing of the council building. She had spent 12 years working in these halls. She had saved lives in these operating rooms. She had taught classes in these lecture halls. Now she was saying goodbye to it all. A young Thessian doctor ran up to her. Dr. Sullivan, wait, please. I need to ask you something. Amy stopped and turned. The Thessian looked nervous. What do we do when you leave? Who will handle the complex cases? Who will train new doctors? Amy felt tired. She had answered this question 100 times already. You will handle them yourselves. You are smart and capable. You have all the knowledge we gave you. Now you must use it without us. But what if we fail? What if patients die because we do not know enough? The Thessian's voice cracked. I am not ready for this responsibility. Amy put a hand on the young doctor's shoulder. Nobody is ever ready. We were not ready when we started either. We learned by doing. We made mistakes. We lost patience. We cried and then we got better. Now it is your turn. The Thessian looked down. I wish you would stay. Amy squeezed her shoulder gently. I wish we could have stayed as equals. But we cannot stay as servants. She walked away before the Thessian could respond. Behind her she heard quiet crying, but she did not turn back. If she turned back, she might change her mind, and she could not afford that. Admiral Carl Jensen was in a secure communication room talking to human fleet commanders across Council space. Holographic images of captains and generals surrounded him. They were reporting on the evacuation progress. Captain Jake Morrison spoke from Velcor Prime. All human engineers have been withdrawn, sir. The local government is offering triple pay and citizenship if we stay. I told them no. Carl nodded. Good. What is the status of their infrastructure? Jake's expression was grim. Without our maintenance crews, their power grid will fail in 6 months. Their water treatment facilities will break down in 3. Their transportation network will collapse in 1. They do not have anyone trained to fix the systems we built. Carl felt no satisfaction from this news. Make sure you leave detailed manuals and documentation. We are not trying to kill them. We are just not going to save them anymore. Jake saluted. Understood, sir. Velcor Prime evacuation will be complete in 2 weeks, another captain reported in. This was Helen Clark calling from Thessia Station. Medical staff extraction is on schedule, Admiral. We have transferred all patient care to local doctors. Some of them are scared. Carl looked at her tired face on the screen. Are they capable of handling the work? Helen hesitated. With time and experience, yes, but they will lose patience at first. They will make mistakes that we would not have made. People will die who might have lived. Carl closed his eyes for a moment. That is their burden to bear now, not ours. One by one the reports came in. Human workers leaving factories, human teachers leaving schools, human technicians leaving power stations, human farmers leaving agricultural stations, human traders closing shops, human scientists shutting down labs. Everywhere humanity had touched the galaxy, they were now pulling back. It was organized and thorough. Nothing was left unfinished. Every obligation was met. Every duty was fulfilled, but when it was done, they were gone. Back in the council chamber, Daniel Price was preparing to leave. He had said everything he needed to say. The council was still arguing among themselves, trying to find a solution. Some wanted to offer humanity better terms. Others wanted to threaten legal action. A few were already calculating how to survive without human support. Daniel did not care about any of it anymore. He picked up his tablet and his documents. He nodded to Lisa and Amy and Kevin and Carl. Together they walked toward the exit. High Chancellor Vextor called out, "Ambassador Price, please wait. We need more time to discuss this. There must be a compromise." Daniel stopped at the door and looked back. "Chancellor, we gave you 12 years to treat us fairly. We gave you 100 chances to respect us. We gave you everything we had and you gave us nothing in return. There is no compromise left to make." The door slid open and the humans walked through. Behind them, the Galactic Council began to understand what they had lost. Humans walked away, and the Galactic Council knew they were doomed. Part 3. 3 weeks had passed since humanity announced their withdrawal, and the galaxy was already feeling the impact. On the industrial world of Manthar 5, the factories had gone silent. Human engineers had maintained the automated production lines for 15 years. They understood the complex machinery better than anyone. When they left, they took their knowledge with them. The local Mantharian workers tried to keep the systems running, but everything started breaking down. Production dropped by 70% in the first week. By the third week, half the factories were completely offline. Factory supervisor Kelvin stood in the control room staring at error messages he could not understand. The screens were filled with warning symbols and diagnostic codes. He had watched the human engineers work for years, but he had never learned what they actually did. It looked easy when they did it. They would look at a screen and press a few buttons and everything would work again. Now the machines were dying and Kelvin had no idea how to save them. He called the planetary government for help, but they had no answers. All the experts were human and all the humans were gone. On Velcor Prime, the power grid failed exactly when Captain Jake Morrison said it would. The lights went out across the entire planet at the same time. Billions of people were suddenly in darkness. Emergency backup systems kicked in, but they were only designed to last a few hours. The Velcori government had ignored the detailed manuals the humans left behind. They assumed their own engineers could figure it out. They were wrong. Without power, the water treatment plants stopped working. Without water, the cities became unlivable. Riots started on the second day. Governor Thelen stood on his balcony watching smoke rise from a dozen fires across the capital city. He had been so confident when the humans left. He told his people that Velcori did not need alien help. He said they would prove their independence. Now his world was tearing itself apart and he had no solution. He thought about the human engineer Jake Morrison who had warned him this would happen. Thelen had laughed at him. He was not laughing anymore. At Thessia Station, the medical crisis came faster than anyone expected. A cargo ship arrived carrying a viral outbreak from the outer colonies. It was a strain that human doctors had seen before. They had developed a treatment protocol that worked, but the human doctors were gone, and they had not left instructions for this specific virus. Dr. Helen Clark had tried to prepare the Thessian medical staff, but there was too much knowledge to transfer in 6 months. The young Thessian doctors did their best, but patients started dying. Dr. Relmar worked for 30 hours straight trying to save lives. She had been trained by Dr. Helen Clark personally. She knew the techniques and the procedures. But this virus was different from anything in her experience. She tried different treatments, but nothing worked. By the end of the first day, 20 people were dead. By the end of the first week, the number was 200. She stood in the empty corridor outside the intensive care unit and cried. She needed help, but there was nobody to call. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions every day trying to manage the growing crisis. High Chancellor Vextor looked older than he had 3 weeks ago. Reports came in from across council space. A structure failing, production dropping, medical emergencies increasing, trade routes disrupted. Every problem led back to the same cause. Humans were gone. Delegate after delegate stood up with desperate requests for aid. Everyone wanted solutions, but nobody had any. Diplomat Shireen proposed sending delegations to human space to negotiate their return. She volunteered to lead the mission herself. The council approved it immediately. She gathered a team of experienced diplomats from a dozen species. They prepared the best offers they could. Full voting rights on all council matters. Expanded territory grants, economic partnerships, military alliances. Everything humanity had asked for over the years. Everything the Council had previously denied. The delegation traveled to the border of former Council space where human ships had last been detected. They broadcast messages on every frequency. They waited for 3 days but received no response. On the 4th day, a single human vessel appeared. It was a small patrol ship. The pilot's voice came through cold and professional. "This is Lieutenant Ben Foster of the Earth Defense Perimeter. You are approaching restricted space. State your business." Shireen spoke directly to the communication channel. "Lieutenant Foster, I am Diplomat Shireen of the Aquelian Collective. I am leading a council delegation. We need to speak with Ambassador Daniel Price or any human authority." There was a long pause. Lieutenant Foster's response was brief. "Ambassador Price is not available. All council delegations are denied entry to human space. Please turn back." Shireen felt panic rising. "Please, Lieutenant. The council is facing multiple crises. We need human assistance. We are prepared to offer significant concessions." Another pause. Then Lieutenant Foster spoke again, and his voice was somehow colder. "The council should have thought about that before. You made your choice. We made ours. Now live with it." The human ship turned and jumped to hyperspace. Shireen and her delegation were left alone at the border. They returned to council space with nothing. The mission was a complete failure. In the military sector, the situation was worse. The Kreveshi Empire had been watching and waiting. They had spies throughout council space. They knew about humanity's withdrawal. They knew about the chaos that followed. They saw opportunity. Admiral Krevesh gathered his fleet of 300 warships. He had been planning this invasion for years, but human military power had always stopped him. Now the humans were gone. Nothing stood in his way. The Kreveshi fleet struck at the Outer Rim territories without warning. 12 colony worlds had minimal defenses. The new Council Defense Force scrambled to respond, but they were unprepared. Their commanders had never faced a real battle. Their tactics were outdated. Their coordination was poor. The first engagement was a disaster. 20 Council ships were destroyed in the opening minutes. The rest retreated in confusion. Commander Lisa Hayes heard about the attack from her position aboard the human fleet ship Defiant. She was deep in human space now, far from Council territory. The ship's communication officer showed her the tactical reports. The Council Defense Force was being slaughtered. Entire squadrons were being wiped out. The Kreveshi were pushing deeper into Council space with every hour. The officer looked at Lisa with questioning eyes. "Ma'am, the Council is broadcasting distress calls. They are requesting immediate military assistance." Lisa read through the reports carefully. She saw all the mistakes the Council forces were making. She knew exactly how to stop the Kreveshi advance. One human battle group could turn this around. She had done it before. She could do it again. But she did not move. Admiral Carl Jensen appeared on the bridge. He stood beside Lisa and looked at the same reports. The crew waited for orders. Everyone knew what was happening. Everyone knew they could help. Carl spoke quietly. "What are your thoughts, Commander?" Lisa kept her eyes on the screen. "They are dying, sir. Thousands of them. The Outer Rim colonies have civilians. Women and children. The Kreveshi do not take prisoners." Carl nodded slowly. "And if we intervene?" Lisa was silent for a moment. "We could stop the invasion in 3 days. Save millions of lives. Push the Kreveshi back across their border." She finally looked at Carl. "But we would be right back where we started." Carl understood. If they saved the Council now, then nothing would change. The Council would go back to taking humans for granted. They would go back to denying human rights while demanding human sacrifice. The cycle would continue forever. He thought about Captain Nicole Green, who died at Beller Station. He thought about all the human soldiers buried on alien worlds. He thought about 7-year-old girls asking why their mothers died for people who did not care. He gave the order. All human ships maintain current positions. No intervention in Council space. Monitor the situation, but do not engage. The communication officer looked shocked. "Sir, the distress calls are getting more desperate. They are begging for help." Carl's voice was firm. "Acknowledge their transmissions. Send standard response. Humanity is no longer responsible for Council security. They wanted independence. They have it." Lisa felt something twist in her chest, but she said nothing. She had made this choice when she walked out of the Council chamber. She had known this moment would come. The crew carried out their orders. Human ships held position. They watched the battle from a distance. They listened to the distress calls. They did nothing. On the tactical displays, the Kreveshi fleet continued its advance. Council ships continued to die. Colonies continued to fall. Back in Council Space High, Chancellor Vextor received the human response. His hands shook as he read it. Around him, the council chamber was in chaos. Species representatives were screaming at each other. Some blamed humanity for abandoning them. Others blamed the council leadership for driving humanity away. Everyone was looking for someone to blame. Nobody was looking for solutions. Vextor realized with cold clarity that the Galactic Council was collapsing. Without humans to hold it together, everything was falling apart. Humans walked away, and the Galactic Council knew they were doomed. Part 4. The Council emergency session had been going for 6 hours, and nothing had been accomplished. Representatives from 40 species shouted over each other in the Grand Chamber. High Chancellor Vextor had given up trying to maintain order. He sat in his elevated chair watching his civilization tear itself apart. The Kreveshi invasion had claimed 18 worlds now. Refugees flooded into the inner systems, bringing disease and desperation. Infrastructure continued to collapse across council space. And still no solutions appeared. A Paranthi delegate stood up shaking with rage. "This is humanity's fault. They abandoned us in our time of need. They should be held accountable." Several other delegates voiced agreement. A Vrelnian general rose to respond. "Humanity warned us this would happen. We ignored them. We used them. We took everything and gave nothing. This is our fault, not theirs." The chamber erupted into arguments again. Some species blamed humanity. Others blamed the council leadership. A few blamed themselves. None of it mattered because humanity was not coming back. Diplomat Shireen tried one more time to speak reason. "Please everyone listen. Fighting among ourselves accomplishes nothing. We need to focus on survival. We need to reorganize our military. We need to repair our infrastructure. We need to learn the skills humanity provided. It will take time, but we can do this." A Clevery admiral laughed bitterly. "Time? The Kreveshi will conquer half our space before we learn to fix a single power generator. We do not have time." He was right, and everyone knew it. The council had depended on humanity for so long that they had forgotten how to do things themselves. An entire generation had grown up assuming humans would always be there to solve problems. Now those humans were gone and the problems were overwhelming. Every species had sent their best minds to study human technology and techniques. Progress was painfully slow. What humans could do in minutes took them days. What humans could learn in weeks took them months. The gap was enormous. On the front lines of the war, Commander Tokvar prepared for another battle he knew he would lose. His fleet of 80 ships faced a Kreveshi force of 200. The numbers were bad, but the real problem was skill. His captains were brave but inexperienced. They followed his orders but lacked the instinct for combat that human officers seemed to have naturally. He had studied Commander Lisa Hayes' tactics from the Battle of Karos Rim. On paper, he understood her strategy. In practice, he could not make it work. The battle began exactly as he feared. His ships moved into formation, but they were too slow. The Kreveshi exploited every hesitation. Within the first 10 minutes, he had lost 12 ships. His captains called for new orders, but he had no brilliant solution to give them. He told them to hold the line. They tried, but the line broke anyway. More ships exploded in flashes of light. More crews died screaming into the void. Tokvar watched it all on his tactical display, feeling helpless. When human commanders led battles, they seemed to see everything at once. They anticipated enemy movements. They turned disadvantages into advantages. He could do none of that. After an hour, the battle was over. Tokvar had lost 43 ships. The Kreveshi lost only 9. He ordered the survivors to retreat. As they jumped to hyperspace, he looked at the casualty reports. 7,000 dead. 7,000 families destroyed, all because he was not good enough to lead them. He thought about Admiral Carl Jensen, who had won impossible battles with half the resources. He wondered what Jensen would think watching this disaster. Probably nothing. Jensen did not care anymore. Back in council space, desperate measures were being attempted. The Aquelian Collective announced they would offer full citizenship and unlimited resources to any human willing to return and help them. The offer went unanswered. The Vrelnians tried next. They sent a delegation to the border of human space with ships full of treasure, gold and rare minerals and precious artifacts. Lieutenant Ben Foster met them again in his patrol ship. He listened to their offer politely. Then he told them humans did not need council treasure. They had their own resources now. The Vrelnian delegation returned home empty-handed. On Manthar 5, the factory crisis reached its breaking point. With production at minimum levels, the economy had collapsed. Unemployment hit 70%. Food shipments from other worlds had stopped because Manthar 5 had nothing to trade. Supervisor Kelvin watched workers riot in the streets outside the factory complex. They were angry and hungry and scared. They blamed the government. They blamed the council. Some blamed humanity for leaving. Kelvin understood their anger, but anger did not fix broken machines. He had spent months studying the manuals humans left behind. He finally understood about 30% of the systems. It was not enough. The factory needed to run at 80% capacity just to keep the population fed. He could manage 20% on good days. His engineers worked themselves to exhaustion trying to learn faster. Some died from stress and overwork. Others gave up and left. Kelvin kept going because someone had to, but he knew it was hopeless. Manthar 5 was dying and he could not save it. Dr. Relmar faced similar hopelessness at Thessia Station. Another outbreak had hit the station, and this one was worse. She had no treatment for it. Human medical databases would have had the answer. But those databases were locked behind encryption she could not break. Humans had shared their knowledge freely while they were here. They took it with them when they left. She could not blame them, but she wished things were different. Patients filled every bed in her medical wing. They filled the corridors too. She moved between them trying to ease their suffering. She could not cure them, so she tried to comfort them. Many died holding her hand. One patient was a young Thessian girl, maybe 12 years old. Her name was Vela, and she reminded Relmar of herself at that age. Curious and bright and full of life. The disease was taking that life away hour by hour. Relmar sat beside her bed during her final moments. Vela looked up at her with fading eyes. "Doctor, why did the humans leave? Did they not like us?" Relmar felt tears on her face. "They liked us well enough. We just did not like them the way we should have." Vela did not understand. She died confused and afraid. Relmar added her to the list of casualties that kept growing. In the council chamber, High Chancellor Vextor received the latest reports and felt his hope die. Manthar 5 was requesting emergency evacuation. They could no longer sustain their population. Thessia Station had lost over 1,000 people to disease. Velcor Prime was barely functional. The Outer Rim territories were almost completely conquered by the Kreveshi. Trade had dropped by 85%. Member species were withdrawing from the council at a rate of 1 per week. Everything was falling apart. He called for a vote on the most desperate measure yet proposed. The council would officially declare humanity an enemy of galactic peace. They would threaten sanctions and military action if humans did not return to help. It was an absurd threat. The council had no power to enforce anything against humanity. But some delegates thought the threat alone might work. Others thought it would make things worse. Vextor did not care anymore. He just wanted something to change. The vote passed narrowly. The declaration was sent to human space. Admiral Carl Jensen received the declaration aboard his flagship. He read it carefully. Then he laughed. It was a genuine laugh full of real amusement. His crew had never heard him laugh like that before. They did not know how to react. Carl forwarded the message to Daniel Price with a single-line comment. "They think they can threaten us now. This should be entertaining." Daniel read it and smiled. He composed a formal response. It was brief and professional. It said that humanity rejected the Council's authority and considered any military action an act of war. He added that human defensive capabilities far exceeded anything the Council currently possessed. He recommended they not test that claim. The response reached the Council within hours. Several delegates demanded immediate military action. They wanted to send fleets to human space to force compliance. Cooler heads pointed out the obvious problem. The Council had no fleets capable of challenging humanity. Their best ships and commanders had just been defeated by the Kreveshi. Human military power was several levels above that. Any war with humanity would end in complete Council defeat. The aggressive delegates quieted down. The declaration of enmity was quietly forgotten. Nobody mentioned it again. On New Terra, humanity celebrated their first major construction milestone. The main city now housed 5 million people. Orbital factories were producing ships and equipment at rates that exceeded old Council limitations. Human scientists worked on projects the Council had forbidden: advanced weapons research, genetic modifications, artificial intelligence beyond safety limits. All the things the Council had restricted because they feared human advancement. Now humans advanced without restriction. Their technology leaped forward. Their capabilities expanded. They were becoming something new. Daniel Price stood at the dedication ceremony for the new planetary defense grid. It was the most advanced military installation humanity had ever built. Weapons that could destroy entire fleets, shields that could withstand sustained bombardment, detection systems that could see threats from light years away. No enemy could threaten New Terra now. He gave a speech about security and independence. The crowd cheered. Later that night, he stood alone in his office looking at reports from Council space. The suffering there was immense. Part of him still cared. A very small part, but not enough to go back. Lisa Hayes found him there. She had reports too. The Kreveshi had taken 2 more worlds today. Council casualties were in the hundreds of thousands now. She put the reports on his desk. Still think we made the right choice? Daniel looked at the numbers. Yes, these people are not our responsibility anymore. We gave them decades of protection. We gave them everything we had. They chose to treat us as servants instead of partners. Now they pay the price for that choice. Lisa nodded slowly. History will not be kind to us. Daniel met her eyes. History is written by survivors. The Council might not survive to write anything. Either way, humanity will endure. That is what matters. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council continued its slow collapse. Species fought among themselves. Resources dwindled. Hope faded. The civilization that had stood for thousands of years was dying. And humanity watched from far away, feeling no obligation to save it. They had walked away and they meant to stay gone. Humans walked away, and the Galactic Council knew. They were doomed. Part 5. 6 months had passed since humanity left. Council space in the galaxy had changed forever. The Galactic Council still existed, but it was a shadow of what it once was. 40% of member species had withdrawn or stopped participating. Trade had collapsed to levels not seen in centuries. Entire sectors were now controlled by pirates or warlords. The Kreveshi Empire had conquered 30 systems before other species finally organized enough resistance to slow them down. But the war was far from over, and everyone knew the Council was losing. High Chancellor Vextor sat alone in his office, staring at reports he could barely understand anymore. His scales had dulled with stress and age. He looked like he had aged 20 years in 6 months. The Council had lost all authority. Member species ignored directives. Trade agreements were broken daily. Military cooperation had fallen apart completely. Everything humanity had built was gone, and nobody knew how to rebuild it. He thought about Ambassador Daniel Price and wondered if the human had known it would be this bad. Of course he had known. That was why he left. On the human colony world of New Terra, the mood was completely different. Construction crews worked day and night building new cities. Farms stretched across fertile valleys. Factories produced goods for human use only. Ships came and went carrying supplies and people. Humanity had found a cluster of uninhabited star systems far beyond Council space. They claimed it all. 15 planets were being terraformed. 20 space stations were under construction. The population was growing fast as more humans arrived from old colony worlds. Daniel Price stood on a balcony overlooking the main settlement. The city below was called Freedom, and it lived up to its name. No Council regulations, no alien oversight, no one telling humans they could not expand or grow or thrive. Just humans building something for themselves. Lisa Hayes joined him on the balcony. She had been overseeing the defense fleet. Human ships patrolled the borders of their new territory, making sure nobody followed them. So far, no one had tried. Lisa looked at Daniel with an expression he could not quite read. I got another message from the Council today. They are asking for humanitarian aid. The Kreveshi are targeting civilian populations now. Millions are dying. Daniel did not look at her. What did you tell them? Lisa was quiet for a moment. I did not respond. Daniel nodded. Good. Lisa shifted her weight. Daniel, some of those people helped us. Diplomat Shireen always voted in our favor. Dr. Pelvan saved human lives. There were good ones mixed in with the bad. Daniel finally turned to face her. I know, but if we help them now, it will never end. They will expect us to solve every problem. We will be right back where we started. Lisa knew he was right, but it still felt wrong. Children are dying, Daniel. Not council politicians or military leaders. Children. Daniel's expression hardened. Human children died on New Montana. 8,000 of them. Nobody came to help. Now they know how it feels. Far away in council space, diplomat Shireen was trying to hold together what remained of the Aquilian government. Her homeworld was facing food shortages because human agricultural technology had stopped working. The Aquilians had depended on human-designed systems for decades. Now those systems were failing and nobody knew how to fix them. Starvation was becoming a real possibility. She had spent weeks trying to contact Daniel Price. Every message went unanswered. Every plea was ignored. Humanity had truly walked away. She sat in her chamber looking at old photographs from better times. There was one of her and Daniel at a cultural exchange ceremony. They were both smiling. She remembered that day clearly. Daniel had been hopeful then. He believed the council could change. He believed humans and aliens could be real partners. She had believed it too. They had both been wrong. She put the photograph away and went back to work. There were emergency food distributions to organize, people to save, a civilization to hold together without the humans who had been its foundation. On Velcor Prime, Governor Thelen had been removed from office. The new government was struggling just as much as he had. The power grid still failed regularly. Water treatment plants barely functioned. The population had dropped by 20% as people fled to other worlds. The remaining citizens lived in constant fear of the next breakdown. Engineers worked around the clock trying to understand the systems humans had built. They made slow progress, but every solution created new problems. The technology was simply too advanced for them. It would take decades to catch up, and they did not have decades. A young Velcori engineer named Shen stood in a control room surrounded by equipment she barely understood. She had found the manuals Captain Jake Morrison left behind. She read them every day. The instructions were clear and detailed, but they assumed knowledge she did not have. It was like trying to learn to run before learning to walk. She made notes and diagrams. She taught herself slowly. Sometimes she succeeded in fixing small problems. More often she failed. But she kept trying because there was nobody else. All across the galaxy, people like Shen were trying to fill the gap humans left behind. Most were failing. The Thessian medical community had lost 30% of their doctors. Many quit after watching too many patients die. Dr. Relmar was still working, but she was different now. The enthusiasm was gone. She saved the patients she could and tried not to think about the ones she could not. The advanced medical techniques humans taught her were useless without the equipment and supplies humans provided. She was back to using basic medicine from before humanity arrived. People died from diseases that had been curable just months ago. It felt like going backward in time. In the military sector, the council forces were still fighting the Kreveshi, but they were losing ground every day. New commanders had learned from their mistakes, but they still could not match human tactical brilliance. Admiral Carl Jensen's strategies had been studied and copied, but nobody could execute them properly. Battle after battle ended in defeat. Retreat after retreat gave up more territory. The council was running out of worlds to lose. A Vrelnian general named Tokvar had taken command of the defense forces. He had studied every battle Carl Jensen ever fought. He understood the theory, but theory did not win wars. He needed experience and instinct, and the kind of tactical genius that only came from years of combat. He had none of those things. His officers looked to him for leadership, but he felt like a fraud. He gave orders that made sense, but they never worked the way human orders had worked. His soldiers died, and he could not stop it. At night, he dreamed about sending one more message to Carl Jensen. One more plea for help. But he knew it would be ignored like all the others. The Kreveshi Empire continued to expand. Admiral Krevesh was unstoppable now. He had feared human military power his entire career. Without humans in his way, he felt invincible. His fleet grew larger as smaller species surrendered and joined him rather than face destruction. The council called them traitors, but Krevesh called them smart. Why die for a council that could not protect them? His empire now controlled 60 star systems. He planned to take 60 more. Back on New Terra, humanity celebrated their first Independence Day. Every human world held festivals. Ships filled the sky with light shows. Daniel Price gave a speech to billions watching across human space. He talked about freedom and dignity. He talked about building something new. He talked about the future humanity would create without the council holding them back. The crowds cheered. Children waved flags. People sang songs about the exodus from council space. It was a day of joy and hope. Lisa Hayes stood at the edge of the celebration. She watched humans dancing and laughing. They had earned this happiness. They deserved this peace, but she could not stop thinking about the galaxy they left behind. All those species struggling alone. All those people dying in wars they could not win. All those children going hungry on worlds humans once protected. She knew humanity had made the right choice. She knew they could not go back. But knowing it was right did not make it feel good. A young human boy ran up to her. He was maybe 8 years old. He saluted her clumsily. "You are Commander Hayes, right? You are the hero from Karos Rim." Lisa smiled despite herself. "I am." The boy's eyes were wide with admiration. "My dad says you saved millions of people. He says you are the greatest military commander alive." Lisa knelt down to the boy's level. "Your dad is very kind, but I am just doing my job." The boy nodded seriously. "When I grow up, I want to be just like you. I want to protect people too." Lisa looked at this child who knew nothing about the galaxy outside human space. He did not know about the wars or the suffering or the difficult choices. He just knew that humans were free now. He just knew that life was good. She put a hand on his shoulder. "Then study hard and train harder. But remember something important. Being a protector means protecting everyone, not just the people who look like you. Real strength is knowing when to fight and when to walk away." The boy nodded, though she doubted he fully understood. He saluted again and ran back to his parents. Daniel Price found Lisa a few minutes later. She was still watching the celebrations with that same conflicted expression. He stood beside her without speaking for a while. Finally, he broke the silence. "Having doubts?" Lisa shook her head slowly. "No, we did the right thing, but the right thing still cost something." Daniel understood. "That is the burden we carry. We chose freedom over responsibility. We chose our people over everyone else. History will judge us for it." Lisa looked at him. "What do you think history will say?" Daniel watched the fireworks exploding above New Terra. "I think history will say humanity got tired of being heroes. We got tired of sacrificing everything for people who gave nothing back. We got tired of dying for a galaxy that did not appreciate us, so we walked away and we never looked back." Lisa thought about that. "And the galaxy? What happens to them?" Daniel's voice was cold. "They learn to save themselves or they do not. Either way, it is not our problem anymore. They had their chance. They wasted it. Now they live with the consequences. Somewhere far away in council space, the consequences were indeed being lived. People were suffering. Worlds were burning. Empires were falling. But on New Terra, none of that mattered. Humanity had walked away and they were done looking back.